hypocrites were known as being pretenders. Again, they were people who played a certain role. And often you have people who are not, again, showing to you who they truly are. They are just playing a role. They are just playing a role in order that they might accomplish a certain agenda. You got to be careful when people are just pretending to be something that they are not. That's the reason the Bible warns us that when it comes to the righteous, that we have to choose our friends carefully. You just can't call a person a friend and you really don't know them. You just can't call them a friend and you don't know their true motives, because there are people that will pretend to be something, but they're trying to get next to you because they want something that you got, and you give them access to get it. You give them access to move in on you. They are just a pretender. And God, don't I wish that when it came to a dissembler and a pretender, I wish we could only have to deal with them when it comes to the world. I wish that when I talk about pretenders, that I'm talking about people that are in the world. But sadly, when you really preach and teach about pretenders, you have those who are pretenders, yet they go to church. They go to church with you. They're a member of the same church that you belong to. Come on. They get the same teaching that you get. They hear the same preaching that you hear. But instead of them being who they actually say they are again pretenders. You got to be careful. Everybody's not for the pastor. Everybody don't like the pastor. You got to watch out for these pretenders. Everybody don't like that people talking about giving to the pastor. Everybody don't like when you talk about appreciating the pastor. Matter of fact, you'll be surprised at folk that never appreciate the pastor. You'll be surprised at people that'll even stand up here and act like it's good to give the pastor. If it's so good to give to him, why don't you ever do it? Why don't you ever do what is asked of other people? Why don't you stop pretending? Oh God, you want people to think that you're something that you are not. Why don't you stop playing? You don't pray the way you want folks to think you pray. Why don't you stop pretending? You ain't really clapping for God. That fake prayer. Why don't you stop pretending? Oh God, look at somebody and tell them, beware of the hypocrites. Come on, not in somebody else's church, in the church you belong to. Beware of the pretenders that you live with. When you really study scripture, Jesus' ministry, you'll come to the conclusion that most of the time his problem didn't come from sinners. Come on. You could even go so far and say that most sinners loved him. Most sinners appreciated him. His biggest problem was from religious church people. Sometimes our biggest problem is our cousin that claim to be saved. Sometimes your biggest problem is that you listen to your backslidden parents. That was Jesus' biggest problem. And when you really break it down, he was often confronted by the Jews. Watch, people who claim to be Abraham's seed, but they hated the church. They hated what he had came to build. They hated what he had came to establish. When they saw him with his 12 disciples moving about teaching this, that, and the other, the Jews hated him and they fought the church every step of the way. But Jesus said, upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. He knew the Jews hated him, but they couldn't stop what it was that he was establishing. Hello, Hebrew Israelites. You cannot stop what God is establishing. You can fight it and continue to be enemies of the church, or you can come into the knowledge of truth. But here he is up against a person or group of people who are learned in the law. You have to be careful when it comes to certain folk. They'll know what church you go to. they'll know what you believe. And they'll learn 3 or 4 scriptures that's contrary to what they know you believe. And that's all they want to talk about. Come on. Every cookout, every family reunion, every gathering, somehow they want to get on the same subjects. See, I'm dealing with it. That's how these lawyers was. They not only learned the law, but it was their job to interpret or teach the law. So you have to be careful of people who say God has anointed them to teach, has anointed them to preach. Got to be careful of certain preachers who say God has given them a revelation. And they have an interpretation. Woo! Because see, some of us, when folks say they found something new, we can't wait to hear what it is. Come on, because we have itching ears. But Jesus reveals in Luke 11 that when it came to these men, they were trying to take away the key of knowledge. And you would wonder, why would people who supposed to know the word not want people to read it for themselves? Why would people hold to certain traditions only to keep men in bondage when they know that there's something better? And so when it comes to knowledge, number one, knowledge is information gained from experience. When you talk about knowledge from a general sense, knowledge is information that is gained from experience. But see, when it comes to gaining knowledge by what you have experienced, you have to be careful. Because sometimes we'll have an experience and we'll take from that experience something that we consider to be good knowledge, but it's not beneficial. You didn't get from that experience what you needed to get. Let me break this down. See, some of us, God allow you to first of all be a part of a church. Sometimes that is seemingly to the point to where a whole lot of things are being done wrong. Oh, sometimes God will allow you to be on a job and you see folk doing a number of things that you know is not right. And so if you're not careful, you will take from that experience when it comes to that church that nobody is right. Nobody can live right. That's the knowledge that you gain by being a part of a ministry that really didn't do things biblical. And so you come away from it with the knowledge that can't nobody live right. This stuff really isn't real. I went to church for so many years and all I seen were folk play in church. I don't really believe that there are real deacons. I don't believe that there are bona fide pastors because you have taken an experience and you've learned from that experience knowledge that is not beneficial unless you allow God to break it down. What you mean, Pastor? Sometimes God puts us in places, whether it be a church, a ministry, or a job, where there's a whole lot going wrong, and the knowledge he wants you to get is to learn what not to do. Oh God, he letting you see folk mess up on the job so you will learn you don't want to be like this. He allowed you to be around some jacked up leaders so that when he brought you into leadership, you'll remember how they hurt people. You'll remember how they messed folk lives up. And he'll say, remember the knowledge that I gave you, that I allowed you to gain. And don't be like them.